Well, Djokovic
Yeah, he's the biggest loser by a mile.
is other than Tsitsipas was my biggest loser, but he's right up there as well. Just that it'll have a knock on him for the rest of his career. Everyone will remember it, and he'll sort of become known for it a bit. So,
Yeah.
and also he missed out on a pretty much guaranteed slam. Team may have given him a run for his money, but most likely Djokovic would have won it. So,
Did this Grand Slam make you more interested or excited for the post Big Three era, or more kind of worried about it?
More excited, definitely. I think this Grand Slam was an absolute win for those guys because I think before this, no one really trusted the fact that if the big three weren't there, that they would be there. Everyone.
It's a miracle! Oh, yeah! What about that one? No! Unbelievable! Balotelli! Aguero! Crowd cheers. Here's Siddle. Oh, the ball is close! He's given him! He's given him! Peter Siddle's got a hat-trick on his birthday!
Welcome back to the On the Ball podcast. This is episode 64 of the show. We are here today to review the US Open that finished on Sunday, well, Monday our time, Sunday at the time of the location. We're joined by the tennis experts. Brownie, welcome back, mate.
Good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Pilch, how are you?
g'day boys, not bad.
Yeah, we watched quite a bit of tennis. We probably didn't watch it maybe as much as we would if it was like, I don't know. I think I'll watch the French Open more just because it's a better time zone. But it was an enjoyable slam. Did you rate it, Brownie? There was some big names missing, but did you like the tennis?
No, overall, surpassed my expectations, I must say. I had low expectations going in, and it was better than I expected.
Yeah, Pilch, did you enjoy it, mate?
Well, I agree. It was good considering the circumstances, but as you boys know, I'm a diehard Djokovic fan, so that part of it I didn't enjoy that part of it too much, but overall didn't mind it.
Yeah, no, I rated it. I love a bit of unpredictability in my tennis. Don't really care for like a Novak Rafa final, something like that. So it was nice to see some fresh faces get a crack at it. So yeah, we're just going to run through some awards basically to just help us have a combo about it. Otherwise, I don't know how we'd talk about it. So first up, I reckon we'll talk about individual match awards. So we'll go match of the tournament to kick us off, and then we'll get into some player awards and stuff like that later. Match of the tournament. I can't lie, I didn't watch too many matches in full, like from point one to the final point. Most matches I was either tuning in for like 2 sets or something and then had to do some uni work or tutoring or something. But I'm going to go I would go the men's final, but sadly I had tutoring from about halfway through the fourth, which pretty much pushed right through the 5th set tiebreak. So I don't know if I can classify that as that I watched it. So I'm going to say Tsitsipas. That was an absolute thriller. Made it into, I don't know how late it went. It was like 2 a.m. their time or something, because it finished at like 2:30 here, something like that. Coric got up over Tsitsipas, and it was a pretty big upset, I'd say. I don't think many people thought Tsitsipas would struggle with that one. Coric, he's obviously seeded, so he's not a bad player, and he's been in the top 20 in the past, I believe. But he's kind of fallen away a little bit in the last 18 months, but he had a great tournament. And, he really impressed, and he beat Tsitsipas. And it went right down to the wire. I don't know exactly what the score was, but I think it might have gone to a 5th set tiebreak. And, it was really good.
He seriously
really
clutched
enjoyed
up.
it. Yeah, and Tsitsipas, I don't know. I kind of like him, kind of hate him. He's a bit of an aggro bloke at times, and as soon as the scoreboard doesn't go his way, he kind of starts sulking, so I don't really respect him that much. And as the match went on, he was getting more annoying, and that made me want Charge to win more. So it was a great game or match. I always say game in tennis, and I assume to tennis like diehards that's like a triggering thing. But Brownie, what would you say was match of the tournament?
You stole mine. I had the same one.
Sorry.
But I didn't watch many matches in full, to be honest, either. But if I had to choose another one, I've got another one here. To just as a good occasion, feel good moment was Andy Murray's first round match where he came back from 2-love down and won 2 tiebreaks in the third and the fourth, I think, and then came back and won the 5th set. Just because, everyone a couple of years ago, if you told us that Andy Murray would be playing in the US Open, no one would really believe you because everyone thought his career was done. So for him to be back and playing well, as much as I'm not the biggest fan, is good to see. And that was a good moment for him, even though he got chopped round 2. But yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't round 2 was a bit brutal. But Pilch, what would you say was your match of the tournament?
Yeah, I agree as well.
Surely not. I thought mine was a bit of a pod. Fair enough.
But I've got another one here. Fritz v Shapovalov in the third round. Another 5-setter between 2 promising young players. From what I didn't watch it because of the time zone, but from what I heard, it was a good match, topped off by a good fight back by Shapo from 2-1 down.
No takers for Stevie Johnson, John Isner.
That was my third, actually.
But, yeah. No, I hope that was a joke, mate. But yeah, I think that definitely was match of the tournament. To be honest, in the women's draw, I was looking at it. There weren't too many, I don't even know if there were that many third set tiebreaks at all. I think there was only a couple. There were a lot of 3-setters, but they were 6-3, 2-6, 6-3, stuff like that. So yeah, I didn't really have any women's matches too high up there. But yeah, once again, because of the time zone, couldn't really watch all of the matches. So I'm sure there was some good ones that slipped through under the radar for us. All right, now shock of the tournament. You could take this 2 ways, I guess. You could have it as a match, or you could have it as someone's performance in general. In this, I've gone with Muguruza losing to Svetlana. I think her name is Svetlana Pironkova. Pironkova, she has not played for ages. I actually don't know when the last time she played was. She gave birth in 2018, and she used to be a top 30 player back in the day. I was saying to Brownie, I don't know why I remember her very distinctly because she was the only Bulgarian in the top 200. So she always stuck out to me. And then Muguruza, although most women's tennis seeds are no sure thing to get over the unseeded players, she's someone who I'd probably have a little bit more faith in than most. I don't know. I just think she's pretty solid. But yeah, and she had she's had a good 2020 so far. She did really well in the Oz Open. But yeah, this kind of came out of the blue, and then Pironkova went on a bit of a dream run to the quarters where she lost to Serena in 3. So, I'd say this was my shock of the tournament. Pilch, what are you going to go for this one?
Well, this is a bit of a double, but Vasek Pospisil beating both Raonic and RBA in consecutive matches. I think they were two of the biggest shocks of the tournament.
Yeah, Batista are good. I might talk about him a bit later in the most disappointing category, but yeah, that's something you wouldn't expect him to. He's another guy who you'd back him in to make the 4th round of this Grand Slam pretty comfortably, but he even struggled in round 2. I was looking at, I think he went to 4 with Kekmanovic. So I don't know. So maybe Tennis Sangren got in his head round 1 despite losing straight sets. But yeah, Brownie, what are you going with?
Well, my other ones have already been covered. So the one I've got left is shock of the tournament. I mean, Novak being defaulted in his 4th round, which is was the biggest shock. I remember waking up and up until that point, I'd been checking the scores every day, but hadn't really been watching much because I just knew Djokovic was going to win and I was kind of bored. And then I was just in the best mood the entire day after I saw that news. Sorry, Pilch, but it was just absolutely unheard of that something like that would happen to a sure favorite in a Grand Slam. It was just absolutely insane, and I don't think anyone saw it coming. And no one saw it coming at all. Just crazy, and it's just not much else to say really. Just wild that happened.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it when I woke up because it obviously happened overnight for us, or maybe it was a bit later, but I just wake up late because I'm lazy. But yeah, I was glad to see it as well, Brownie. I'm sure a lot of people out there were mad about it. It would be interesting to see what effect it had on what impact it had on the tournament in terms of like viewership and stuff like that. Because obviously Jovac was Djokovic. I said Jovac.
Novak.
That should be his name. Djokovic. He's like clearly was the main draw card in that men's draw. But then that incident kind of like raised the profile of the tournament almost. I feel like not many people knew it was on in the first week. So it would have been interesting to see what effect that had on the ratings and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely a shock of the tournament. Probably equally him just not winning. I think, well, we were talking about it on the predictions episode. But yeah, we had him as a sure thing basically. Now, moving into the player awards, most impressive players. Obviously, there's quite a few because there was 128 in each draw. I'm going to start us off with the women's. I'm going to go Marta Kostyuk. Brownie, we are big fans of Marta.
Yeah.
We saw
Saw
her
her 2018, I reckon.
Yeah,
2018
surely.
Oz Open.
It couldn't have been much earlier than that because she would have been in nappies. But how old is she now? She's 18. Turned 18 in June, so she was only 17 at the Oz Open. She beat Kasatkina 6-1, 6-2 in the first round. Then went on to beat the seeded Sevastova 6-3, 7-6, and then took Osaka, the eventual winner, to 3 sets. And yeah, she really pushed her there. So I think in that little section of the draw, obviously everyone was pumped for Osaka Goff, but Kostyuk kind of came out of the clouds and just lit it up. So yeah, she was probably the one who impressed me the most. Brownie?
Well, for me, most impressive, I had Peronkova, who you already covered, but
Yeah.
it was her first tournament since 2017 Wimbledon, which is a very first tournament back in like 2.5 years. Over 3 years. Just absolutely crazy. And to come out and get the wins that she did over Muguruza and Vekic, and then Cornet, who are like, they're no slouches. It's not like that's not an easy draw to get to a quarterfinal of a Grand Slam. If you look at the draw of some of the other people who got to the quarterfinals, beating 2 solid seeds, and then taking Serena to 3 sets as well, and of course even playing Serena in a quarterfinal of a Grand Slam, and like having a good competitive matchup is just a big win for your career as a whole. And she's got a lot of. I feel like she got a fair bit of media like airtime as well during the tournament, and she was just playing solid tennis. And the fact that she hadn't played in so long and got that far, she's now ranked like 150 in the world because those are her only points. It's really funny, but yeah, that was the most impressive for me. And also, I chucked in there as well Jennifer Brady, who you had I'm sure you want to talk about that later because you had a good prediction there, but she had a great tournament, just cruised through, like no fuss, just got the job done every time, and had a really good semi-final as well, where she obviously didn't get up, but was impressive nonetheless. And it's not like, I'm sure she wouldn't be that disappointed of the loss there because she's made big progress. It's a big tournament for her.
I can't lie, I was planning on listening back to our predictions episode and like react to them, but I kind of forgot to do that. And plus, we've got enough to talk about anyway. But yeah, I was big on Brady. She didn't win. I think she lost early in the Western Southern or whatever it was called, but she won a 250 the week before that without dropping a set. And yeah, it has to be said, Caroline Garcia did her a favor by eliminating Pliskova in the second round. But yeah, she cruised through and made a semi, which I don't think many people would have picked. And now she wasn't like a legit seed because she was seeded 28, which meant she would have been ranked like, I don't know, in the 40s. But now she's in the top 30 and will be seeded unless she drops points somewhere. Well, she can't in this season, but in the future she'll be seeded for a while. And she's 25, so she's reaching the prime of her career, and she's set herself up for future success there. Pilch, who are you going up with next?
I'll go Carreno Busta, a bloke that's a former top 10 player who's had a bit of a quiet last year or two, and he got lucky with the Djokovic disqualification, but he he took advantage of it, got himself into the semis, and then was one set away from being in a slam final. So I think he'll come away from it with a lot of confidence, and it should help him going forward as well as a big boost to his ranking.
Yeah,
exactly. It's a tough one because he did get, like, let's be real, he just wasn't beating Novak, but then he took his chance. He took his chance, didn't he?
Yeah.
And so he did well to make most of that. Next up, I've got quite a few names here. I probably won't go into all of them in depth, otherwise we'll be here for hours. But Azarenka is probably another clear one. She did win Cincinnati, so it wasn't unexpected, but well, I don't know what ranking she is. She's probably like ranked in like the 60s or 50s going into it. And she came out and made the final and was looking like vintage Azarenka a lot of the time. Beat Serena, which automatically makes it a successful tournament, basically, beating the best women's player ever. So, yeah, I think Azarenka was very impressive. Other guys I've got written down here, I don't want to steal your thunder. But we've already mentioned Pospisil. Obviously, he had a run of dreams, beating Batista, Gut, and Raonic. Coric also had a very good one. They were calling him... It sounded like, when they were commentating, it sounded like they were calling him George, because they were calling him like Chorich or something. And it was like confusing me. I kept thinking they were calling him George. But Chorich had a very good campaign. As I said, he's been a bit quiet recently. But what did he make, the quarterfinals? Yeah, and he lost to Zverev in 4, and 2 of the sets Zverev won went to tiebreak, so he pushed him there, and yeah, obviously beat Tsitsipas. So he had a very successful campaign. And then finally, just to round my names out, I've got Davidovich. I don't know how to pronounce it. Davidovich Fokina or Fokner. Young Spaniard, 21 years old. He kind of came onto the scene pretty fast. Like, I reckon he's been in the top 100 for quite a while now. But he's kind of just pitted out recently. And this tournament, he just went off. He made the 4th round. It has to be said, he didn't have any like freakish victories. But I think he's ranked in like the 90s, and he beat Hurkacz, beat Dennis Novak in 5 sets in the first round. So he's probably lucky to even get out of that, but then went on to beat Hurkacz, beat Norrie, and then it's fair to say he got smashed by Zverev. But for someone ranked in the 90s to make the 4th round of a slam, that's pretty rare. So fair play to him. Do you have any others you want to mention? Or not really?
Not. I don't have any. Oh, I had Pospisil down as well, but he's been talked about. Yeah, I'll bring up some of the others when we talk about the biggest winners, to be honest.
Yeah, Pilcher, did you just have your one man down?
No, I'll throw in de Minaur as well. As an Aussie, we like to see the Aussies do well, and I thought he easily surpassed his expectations with a quarterfinal appearance, and he had a good tournament.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That actually moves me in nicely to my most disappointing category. De Minaur beat Karen Khachanov in the 3rd round. It did go to 5 sets, but I've got Khachanov as one of my most disappointing. This probably just goes to Khachanov in general. I think, did he lose to Kyrgios or something in the 3rd round of the Oz Open?
It was 2nd.
Yeah,
I think Kyrgios was seeded.
Oh, okay, yeah, I was going to say that surely that's not possible if he was seeded, but that makes sense. Yeah, so that's not ideal, really. A top 15 player knocking on the door of the top 10 to be losing in the 2nd and 3rd of 3rd rounds of Grand Slams in 2020. So I thought he was going to maybe try and bounce back in this US Open, but not ideal from him. He got pushed by Sinner in the 1st round to 5 sets, which we predicted was going to be one of the matches of the 1st round, and he won a 5th set tiebreak there. So he was lucky to get out of that. And then he beat Kuznetsov, who played his first tournament in like 3 years, and then lost to de Minaur. I thought that was pretty disappointing from Khachanov. I guess he lost to someone who's ranked not too far below him. But yeah, just 3rd round, I think Khachanov needs to start lifting if he wants to keep up with like the rest of his generation, who seem to be improving in, they're striding ahead of him at the moment. Brownie, who disappointed you?
For me, I've got most disappointing is the large men as a general theme. So we've got John Eisner, Milos Raonic, Ralia Pelka, Kevin Anderson, Marin Cilic, all disappointing. I mean, Kevin Anderson drew. I mean, Marin Cilic got chopped by team. Kevin Anderson chopped by. I mean, competitive against Zverev. So I can excuse them. And Opelka was slightly injured as well. But all of them, the thing is, all of them the week before the Western and Southern Open did well, and I was afraid that it was going to be just large servers dominating, and the worst of the offenders for me was Milos Raonic, who did well the week before, and to be ranked where he is and to draw Bautista Agut in his section of the draw is like a win for him compared to most of the other players that he could have drawn in the third round. But instead, he was in a section as well with De Minar's section, the section that De Minar got through the quarterfinals. So I think in the way he was playing the week before, it was a good opportunity for him to make it through the quarterfinals of the Slam and really like reaffirm himself as like back as a threat. And he just, I've lost to Pospisil. I mean, he would be obviously disappointed. And same with John Eisner as well. Had an opportunity and lost to Stevie J in the first round.
Yeah, nah. I think we predicted Raonic to maybe go on a bit of a run because I think we saw that his draw wasn't that strong. Pilch, who disappointed you, mate?
I'll go Dimitrov.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's becoming a very common theme, but I mean, he did make the semi-finals last year, but you just can't be going out in the second round against Vucevic. Vucevic is decent, but it's just not on. And he was 2-1 up as well, so he's choked as well. So he's definitely on the way down. He pretty much just stinks now, to be honest.
He's so lucky about the ranking thing.
Yeah, he's going to hold on to those
he would
points
have
from
dropped
last year.
so many points. Like he would have dropped, I don't know, like 600 points or something. So yeah, he's very lucky there. And watch him just whip out another semi-final next year. It'll be his only good tournament all year, and he'll just keep the points somehow. But yeah, no, he's disappointing. He's almost a lock in this category these days.
Yeah.
He did win in the Rome Masters yesterday, I think, so it's probably a rare feeling for him. Another guy that disappointed me, we mentioned him just before, but Bautista Agut, similar to Raonic, surely you're just not losing to Pospisil. I don't think, although they're not seeded or anything, obviously since Bautista Agut seeded himself, I think Sandgren and Kekmanovic, I think there are easier runs in the first two rounds, so that might have softened him up a little bit. But it's not like he had grinding five setters that would have maybe caused injuries or something. He dispatched them in 3 and 4 respectively, so I would have expected him to beat Pospisil fairly comfortably. And yeah, I love Bautista Agut myself. One of my favorite players to watch, and yeah, just not happy with him really.
I think the fact that Pospisil lost to De Minar as well in straight sets kind of rubs it in for both Raonic and Bautista Agut that like he's not that good. Like if De Minar who's not the most aggressive of players, can get him done in 3 sets, then like it's a bit disappointing for both of them to go out to be out to him, you know?
Yeah. I feel like I should have addressed that I'm sitting outside and I have a green headband on, or like a green bandana on, but we're in 24 minutes in, so the viewers can just cop. Pilch, anyone else who disappointed you?
Did you say Tsitsipas earlier?
He was in the thing we talked about in the match of the tournament, but yeah.
Oh yeah. Well,
talk about.
He was in my losers category. It was a pretty, just the fashion in which he lost, the huge choke. I think that'll definitely take a big toll on him over the next few months, if not longer. So yeah, I'll mention him.
To follow up on that, the fact that he lost and then the day later, I think it was the 1 round later, so 2 days later, Djokovic is out. He's the number 4th seed in Djokovic's half of the draw. And then it's the tournament. This ended up being the tournament where those kind of guys, the Zverevs and the teams and the Medvedevs, the guys who were in the same league as Tsitsipas really shone and had their time to shine on the Grand Slam stage. And for all of them to do well, Zverev, Thiem, and Medvedev, and the one guy to be left behind being Tsitsipas, when the nature of him going out was have 4 match points and be 5-1 up. Serve for the match twice, I think, and be 5-1 up and lose 4 match points, and then lose in the 5th. Like, he'll be absolutely kicking himself for a very long time, I feel like, after this, because I feel like I'm not sure what his record is against Zverev, but
it's either 5-1 or 1-5.
Yeah, it's either 5-1 or 1-5. I can check that, actually. No, he's 5-1 up. He's 5-1 up against Zverev record, so he will be backing himself in there. And then there's no Djokovic. Like, he's backing himself. Like, if he's getting through that match and all of a sudden Djokovic is gone, he's backing himself in for a Grand Slam final, and all of a sudden that opportunity's gone because he's choked. Like, he's going to seriously, like, he was my biggest loser of the tournament by far, even more than Djokovic because everyone else in his category of players all had this was like their time, and they all like kind of showed what they all kind of got the like space and took the opportunity to kind of play good tennis and go deep into a Grand Slam, and he's the only one that choked and missed out on it in the way he did. Very bad.
Yeah, no, it's pretty average for him. He was our pick. I think Pilch. I think you and I. I think we were apart. Other than Djokovic, I think we were saying he was probably the next best chance. So that didn't age too well. Brownie, do you have any other men who disappointed you, or do you want to talk about some women?
No, I'll move on to the women, and I had none that disappointed me. To be honest, I looked through the draw, and other than Pliskova, obviously, because she was a number 1 seed, lost in the second round.
That was my main one. Yeah.
There was nothing in the women's draw that like shocked me. Like, obviously there were upsets, but there were no upsets that were like, wow, like that's really bad. You know?
Yeah.
So I think I'll just talk about my biggest loser for the women's draw, which for me is Serena Williams. Which I know she made the semifinals and all, but for me, Serena Williams 5 years ago was like either lose in the first or second round and kind of be gone, or if she makes it through to the quarterfinals, she's winning the tournament, no question. And for the last 3 years, every single time she loses deep into a slam, it kind of makes her seem more and more and more beatable and less intimidating and less scary. And I feel like her aura of being Serena and being unbeatable in the second week of a Grand Slam is all but gone for her, because now she's consistently getting through the first week and losing in the second week, which I think for her is probably even worse than just losing at the very beginning, because now everyone in the final believes that they could actually beat her. Whereas 5 years ago, if you're in a Grand Slam final against Serena Williams, you think you've just got no chance and it's all over already. Yeah. So for me, that's why she's the biggest loser.
Yeah, I'll quickly mention 2 people who disappointed me. Obviously, you just said it, Pliskova. She's now 28 years old, and she's looking like she's never going to win a Grand Slam, to be honest, which I'm not really complaining. I don't really rate the way she plays, but losing in the second round to Garcia, come on, you've got to be doing better than that as the number 1 seed. And then this is so harsh because she's 12. But Corey Goff, in terms of the word disappointing, because I think everyone in tennis was looking forward to the Osaka Goff third round matchup, and for Goff to lose, we did think. Well, Brownie, you especially were saying there's a pretty strong chance she doesn't even get there, but for her to lose in the first round, she did lose to a seeded player, so this is so harsh. But to lose to Sevastova, I think that was disappointing. Not necessarily we were disappointed at her; we were just disappointed of what that meant for the rest of the tournament. I reckon we just do so we've got a winners and losers section now. I reckon we've touched on a few losers, so I reckon we just keep going on the losers side. For me, I'm going men's veterans. So pretty much all the older players did bad. So I'll run through the people who are over 30 or older who were seeded in this tournament. So we have Batista Agut make the third round. Isner made got lost in the first round. Per, he got COVID, so he got kicked out. Lajovic lost first round. Evans lost second round. Struff lost third round. Pella lost first round. Cilic lost third round. Manarino lost third round. To be fair, it's not even a bad effort from Van Manarino. And then Pospisil and Djokovic, they were the only people over the age 30 or above to make the fourth round. So that was pretty shocking, to be honest. I wasn't expecting that. I thought someone like a Cilic, he did have team in his side of the draw or something, but I thought someone like that would take advantage of the situation where people didn't have much of a lead up to the tournament, and their kind of experience and stuff like that would lead them through it. But it almost worked out to be the opposite, and maybe they needed more warming up because they're old. But yeah, I thought that was pretty disappointing. Pilch, any other biggest losers you had?
Well, Djokovic.
Yeah, he's the biggest loser by a mile.
Other than Tsitsipas was my biggest loser, but he's right up there as well. Just that it'll have a knock on him for the rest of his career. Everyone will remember it, and he'll sort of become known for it a bit. So, yeah. And also he missed out on a pretty much guaranteed slam. Yeah. Team may have given him a run for his money, but most likely Djokovic would have won it. So, yep.
Yeah, I think tennis aside, I think his reputation has taken quite a bit of a hit in the last 3 months.
Yep.
Yeah.
He had the whole COVID kerfuffle where he tried to play a tournament with no COVID restrictions. Over half the players ended up contracting COVID. So, and now this.
Not a good look.
And now this, although it's an extremely unlucky incident, he obviously, like Pilch, you're a Djokovic fan, but you agree with this, that he should have been kicked out because that's just how the rules are. But it is stiff. Like, if he hits it one string to the right, he's missed it by like a meter. So like, and it'd still look a bit weird just firing one head high at the back fence, but like that wouldn't have kicked him out of the tournament. So it's very unlucky, but the way it looked pretty bad, just firing a ball into someone's neck, throat. My mom actually thought it didn't, she was expecting worse. Like because she had watched it at the end of that day, so it'd been built up on Facebook and everything the whole day. So she was expecting him just to full like turn around and just full slam it at her, but he kind of just turned his head and just like flicked it back. But obviously the tennis players are skillful enough to get a bit of pace on it. But yeah, I think he's the biggest loser. I still think he'll end up with the Grand Slam record, but it puts a bit of a dent in his case when he can't take advantage of it. As Pilch said, pretty much a gimme. Brownie, do you have any other losers?
No. For me, it was just Tsitsipas and Serena. Covered them already.
I've got two before we get into the winners section. I touched on it before, but I've gone the TV broadcasters. They didn't get Serena versus Osaka, which was a strong chance to be the final when you looked at it in the quarterfinals. They didn't get Osaka versus Goff, and then they didn't get Djokovic in the last three stages of the finals. So I think the popularity, I don't know how the tournament did in terms of TV ratings, but I think the popularity of the tournament in the mainstream audience would have struggled more than it could have if those blockbusters occurred. But yeah, obviously I'm not complaining with that those matches didn't happen. I love a bit of unpredictability, but I'm sure like, you know, old mate John Smith down the road who doesn't know much about tennis would tune in for some of those matches, but not necessarily Shapovalov versus Krajina Busta. So yeah, I thought the TV broadcasters might have lost out a little bit there. And then this isn't really a loser, but I had too many winners, so I've changed it into, I've done a bit of inverse operations and I've made it a negative. I'm going men's US tennis, the old guard of men's US tennis. I think this tournament, obviously the home country, they get like heaps of wild cards and stuff, so there's always going to be a few surprise runs. But Querrey lost in the first round, Isner lost first round, Stevie J lost in the second round. So they're the three guys who you'd probably in the last 5 years you would expect out of the Americans to go deepish into a slam. But then the youngsters, you know, stood up out of their shadow and really took advantage of it. Fritz, he's basically out of their shadow already, but he's 22. He made the third round. Tiafoe, he's 22. He made the fourth round. John Jeffrey Wolfe, he's 21. He made the third round. And then a few others. Nakashima, he's only 19. He made the second round and lost to Zverev in 4, but he was very competitive in the first 2 sets. Then you had blokes like Michael Murray. He never made a first round until this year, and he's whipped out 2 second rounds in a row. The great man. He's 22 as well. And then we have mixed opinions on this bloke, but Maxime Cressy, he did kind of get pumped by Tsitsipas in the second and third sets, but he was on national TV and he's 23, so I'm sure, and like he's a top 100 player in the future, so I think there's been a bit of a changing of the guard in men's US tennis. But yeah, that's it for me in the losers. Pilch, who was your main winner?
I've got another loser to throw out there.
Oh, okay.
Who you just touched on, but Taylor Fritz. This is a similar scenario with Tsitsipas, but in my opinion, he was potentially one game away from a Grand Slam final because he was in that section with Carreno Busta and Djokovic, which would just opened right up, and he served for the match against Shapovalov in the 4th set, and he was playing some good tennis, so he missed out on potentially quite a big run as well.
That's actually a fair point. All right, Brownie, what's your first winner you want to hit us with?
Well, my biggest winner, which I'm sure has been like a general theme of what we've been talking about the whole time, is like the next gen. So 6 of the 8 quarterfinalists were born 1996 or later, which is crazy considering the lack of young people that have come through. And it also shows how bad, like, other than team, obviously, how bad 1990 to 1995 is as a whole. Like, the best they've got to show is like Nishikori, Dimitrov, and Raonic, and obviously team now. But like, that generation is just very poor. But the next gen all did well. Medvedev, Zverev, Shapovalov, Demina, Coric, Rublev, all in quarterfinals. And then Auger Aliassime also had a good showing and got chopped by team. And then obviously team kind of counts just because he's there. But like, probably shouldn't because he's 27. But he's obviously the biggest winner of all of them. Even though he's won a Grand Slam without beating one of the big 3, I think for him, this is the most like impressive way of doing it, considering that none of them, he didn't have to play any of them, because I mean, he got through, beat Cilic, and then chopped both Auger Aliassime and Demina in straight sets, which kind of showed he was like a level above. And then he got through Medvedev in straight sets, which was incredibly impressive considering the form Medvedev coming in. And then he came back from 2 sets to love down against Zverev in the final. And if you like, and then Zverev served for the match again. And even though then team did serve for the match, and the end of the 5th set was a bit iffy. Like, if you forget about that for a second, like if you just like step back and think, like he came back from 2 sets to love down and won in the 5th set tiebreak in a Grand Slam final. Like, that's kind of the most impressive way to do it if you're not going to beat Djokovic, Nadal, or Federer during the tournament. So he's obviously the biggest winner.
Yeah. Do you think, Brownie, do you reckon this is like the opening of the floodgates for team? Do you reckon now that he's got the monkey off the back, he's going to win quite a few now in the next like 3 or 4 years?
It's really hard to say. And I'm very excited for the clay court season because obviously the clay courts is his best surface. But I think what the Australian Open and the US Open this year has shown is that he's definitely stepped it up this year, because the clay court is his best surface and he has made 2 Grand Slam finals, beat Nadal at the Australian Open, got taken Djokovic to 5 sets in an Australian Open final, and that's not even on his best surface. So I'm very excited to see what he does in the clay, because he definitely could. I definitely like put him on par with, like, if I'm seeing Team Djokovic as a clay court match, I'm like, team's a favorite there, or like Team Djokovic, and going into this clay court season, Team Djokovic, Nadal, like, almost. Obviously, he's obviously like not quite at their level, but like, it's not like anyone else. He's like definitely those 2, and then him, and then everyone else. If not him, like closer to them than anyone else, anyone else is to him, you know?
Yeah.
So he's done well this year to solidify himself, but I'm not sure.
Do you reckon there's a case for him to go into Roland Garros as the favourite over Rafa, or
no?
Can you not? Can you not?
Definitely not. Roland Garros is like if there's any clay, like it's like the slowest of the clay courts, and it's the clay court place where Rafa is most likely to beat. Rafa is like the favorite to go to beat Team. Like it's obviously he's the favorite to beat Team everywhere, but like that's the place where he's the best and no one can beat him pretty much. So he's definitely not the favorite going into Roland Garros, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. It's too hard to say that he's going to go ahead and win heaps of Grand Slams because he still hasn't proved himself quite yet enough over 5 sets against Nadal and Djokovic, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. All right. My biggest winner. It's a bit of a strange one. I've taken an abstract take on it, as I have for most of the losers as well. I've gone Canadian tennis in general. I think Canada absolutely smashed this Grand Slam. So first on the women's side, Andreescu didn't play because of COVID reasons. So that was a bit of a sour note, but we all know she's an absolute star. But they had Leylah Fernandez. She turned 18 in the first week of the tournament. She beat Zvonareva in the first round, which you'd kind of expect, but is still unpredictable in the women's game. And she only lost to Kenin 6-4, 6-3. And that was quite a close match. So I think there's promising signs there. But then on the men's side, they absolutely smashed it. Shapovalov, he made his first Grand Slam quarterfinal, beating Fritz and Goffin. Then Pospisil, he made the 4th round, as we've talked about heaps. He lost to Demonor, but he beat Batista Agut and Raonic. And that's his best result in the Grand Slam since he made... I actually didn't know he did this, but he made the quarterfinals at Wimbledon in 2015. But very impressive there. And then Alja, I think Shapovalov they were talking to him after his match. I think he was like the first Canadian to make the quarters since like the 80s or something.
At the US Open.
Yeah. It's been a long time. And then finally, Felix Auger-Aliassime, we mentioned him before, but first Grand Slam, 4th round. He smashed Murray in a very convincing fashion, which we predicted to be one of the matches of the tournament. And then he lost to eventual winner Team. And I think when you lose to the eventual winner, kind of hurts a lot less because you're like, well, if I beat them, I could have gone on and won myself. So, but very impressive signs in Canadian tennis. I guess Raonic didn't perform as he would have liked, but Pospisil and him, one of them had to lose. So, I think Canada had a great slam, and we'll see. Andreescu's playing at the French, so we'll see how she goes herself. Up the Canadians. Pilch, who have you got as a winner?
Yeah, well, I agree with both those calls from you two, but I want to single out Shapovalov as a big winner from the tournament. I don't know about you two, but this year I expected him to make his breakout into the top 10. He hit his straps at the end of last season. He made the Paris Masters final. Looked really promising, but this season it's just been the complete opposite. I think first round at the Australian Open, I believe first or second round in Cincinnati as well. So he had some doubts hanging over him, but he put them out with a good performance at the US Open quarterfinals, and I think that'll be huge for him going forward.
Yeah, I was really happy for him. I was worried. Well, not that he was going to become a Dimitrov, but I was worried that he had the inconsistencies of a Dimitrov. Do you reckon he's a little bit sour about his quarterfinal loss, or do you reckon he's just happy he made a quarterfinal, Pilch?
I
reckon a bit of both.
Because it was Carreno Busta.
I reckon it'll be sour.
Yeah.
I think that he should have won that match.
He definitely should have won that match, but he was probably lucky to win the match against Fritz. I think Fritz kind of choked that.
Yeah, but he did very well to get into the quarters.
Yeah.
The only thing...
Goffin was a big win as well.
Yeah, that was impressive. Goffin was playing decent. He needs to pick a new set of clothes. If he rolls into Roland Garros with that top. Oh, I hate the way that top is made. But anyway. All right, my next winner... I'm going just mothers in women's tennis. 3 of the 8 quarterfinals were mothers. Pironkova, Williams, and Azarenka. And I guess you could say mothers / like veterans because they're all into their 30s, if I'm not mistaken. Don't know how old Azarenka is, to be honest. But yeah, they smashed it. It's usually a bit of a thing in women's tennis. Like a lot of the time, they'll take a year off to have a child, and then they'll come back and they won't be as good, which is a shame. But these three all smashed it. Not really surprised with Serena, but good to see Azarenka and Pronkova making successful comebacks. And then also just women's tennis in general. I think there were bigger names in the women's side than the men's, which is probably the first time ever. In the semi-finals, if you asked just an average Joe on the street, I think they would have known more in the women's four than the men's four, with Osaka, Serena, and Victoria Azarenka. So yeah, I think it would have been, once again, I don't know why I keep talking about TV ratings, but I think this would have been one of the most popular women's sides of the draw relative to the men's. I know it's not a competition, but you never want to see like them just copping no love. So I think it was a big tournament for them. I know me, myself, I was kind of more into the women's side of the draw actually come the final 8. But it was a really good tournament for the women's. Brownie?
Yeah.
Who's another winner?
I think my final winner was the exact same thing, just women's tennis. Especially come more specifically the semi-finals and the final. I think both semi-finals, all 3 of those matches were like 3 really high quality matches with good tennis and like entertaining tennis, which is like a win. And the women's draw, the way it shaped out, it definitely capitalized on like the lack of star power in the men's draw. And even though 6 of the top 10, you wouldn't know that 6 of the top 10 were missing, come the end of the tournament. And I think that the whole like storylines coming in with like Victoria Azarenka finally being in form, Serena coming, Naomi Osaka coming in and doing all of the like social like advocacy that she's doing at the moment as well. They were all like high profile names coming in, and everyone was excited to see how they were probably the 3 players, arguably the 3 players that everyone was most excited to see how they would do this tournament coming in. And the fact that there were 3 of the semi-finalists was like a big win. And it's very like exciting going into the rest of the season to see how it shapes up when like the likes of Halep, Andreescu, Svitolina, Bencic, all of them come back into the fold as well. It'll be really exciting to see how the French Open shapes up.
Yeah, the unpredictability in women's tennis, it can be its biggest asset, but sometimes its biggest downfall, because you can, have a semi-final and you don't even know either of them. It was good to see some mainstream names in there, I guess. We thought it was going to be very unpredictable, but in the end, if you had to put money on 3 people to be in the semis, these probably would have been our top 3. So,
except no one probably would have guessed any of the other quarterfinalists.
Yeah,
you look at the quarterfinals.
Yeah. I'm not going to say she was in my most impressive or anything, but I guess I'm going to say it. But I was actually impressed by Serena. I didn't think she would make the quarterfinals. I thought she was 100% going to choke in one of the first 4 rounds, and she made it to the semis and only got unstuck by a very good Azarenka. So even though ultimately it's kind of a loss for her because it's another Grand Slam in the books, and she's not closer to getting that record. I think she kind of impressed me with how far she got. But Pilch, do you have any other winners?
No, all mine are out.
All right, Brownie, do you have any others?
No, that was all.
All right. I have 2 more, but we've basically talked about them. So I just had the current Grand Slam record holders were the biggest winners because both their records looked safer. Novak, we've talked about it the whole way through, but he basically had a gimme Grand Slam. There's no Grand Slam that's a gimme, but it was as much of a sure thing as a tennis Grand Slam could ever be, and he didn't get it. I still think he's going to finish ahead of Roger overall, just because of the ages, but he's still 3 behind. And Serena, unfortunately, I don't think Serena's ever going to get there. I think this was probably been her. Even though I said I was surprised she made the quarters, I think just with this felt like something Serena could win. Everyone was not really in form because of there'd only been 2 weeks of play, and I thought maybe her experience and stuff could have overpowered everyone else, but she lost in the semis, and she still won behind Margaret Court, which is a shame for Serena. And then the biggest winner, this is a bit cringe, but just tennis. They successfully held a tournament. I thought tennis would have been one of the last sports to come back, to be honest. Well, it kind of is, to be honest. I don't know what sport's not back, but yeah, just with its international nature, there's 30 countries, if not more, in the Grand Slam field. So for them to be able to pull it off and only have a couple COVID scares, I think they did pretty well. So yeah. All right, before we go, I just thought of a question to ask you. I don't know what I was going to ask. But yeah,
French Open tip.
I was going to say that. Well, I think if it suits you guys, I think we will do a French Open preview, even though it's only in like 2 weeks. But yeah, I had a question in mind, but
Rome Masters tip.
Remember it. Oh, I've just remembered. Yeah, who's going to win Rome Masters third round? Now, did this Grand Slam? I think I asked this to maybe Brody and Brownie once, but did this Grand Slam, Brownie, you start us off, did this Grand Slam make you more interested or excited for the post Big Three era, or more kind of worried about
More excited, definitely. I think this Grand Slam was an absolute win for those guys, because I think before this, no one really trusted the fact that if the Big Three weren't there, that they would be there. Everyone, no one really trusts the fact that if Novak, Roger, and Rafa are all gone, it's like everyone just would think it would be a free-for-all. But I think that Zverev, Medvedev, and team show that it's not exactly a free-for-all, and they're actually genuinely better than the rest of the people in the top 30 or 20 or whatever. They're actually better than them, genuinely, and not just lucky to be ranked below them for some reason. Like, everyone just sees the Big Three and the rest, and they're definitely there's definitely like a clear line below Zverev now in the rankings, where there's Team Tsitsipas, Medvedev, and him, and then the rest beyond that. And then I think they're better than the whole 5 to 10 years ago. You've got the Big Three or Big Four, and then you've got Berdych and Nishikori and Del Potro and Raonic and whoever else. And I think they've done a better job than those guys. And yeah, it's made me more excited. And I think they're definitely more competitive against the Big Three than the guys in the past.
Yeah. Pilch, what do you reckon? It's probably a bit hard to say you're not keen now after that uplifting take, but obviously it's a bit different for you as a Novak diehard, so you've probably got a bit more invested in it than the average person. But what do you think? Were you excited for post the Big Three or not?
Well, I'm excited because it'll be more unpredictable for who wins it, and I'm as a fan of the sport in general, I'm excited to see like what sort of players will become great and all that sort of things. And I agree with Brownie that it's definitely what happened is a good thing for the next gen. I think it'll instill belief in all of them that team won that they can do it themselves now. So I think big stepping stone.
Yeah. All right. That wraps us up. As I mentioned, we're going to do a French Open preview, hopefully. It's only in a fortnight from yesterday, I think. So it'll probably be in 3 or 4 episodes, so you don't have to wait too long for that one. Not going to bother talking about the Rome Masters or anything, but behind closed doors, we'll keep track of that, and you should too, because that's a pretty interesting tournament, actually. A lot of big names making comebacks and stuff. But yeah, thanks for joining me, boys, and I hope everyone out there enjoyed the US Open and enjoyed the episode today. Thank you. Bye.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers.